Hello, Netty. Thank you for joining us. You got your cup of coffee?
I certainly have, my dearie. Got my little
Good.
sip. So, yes.
Well,
Lovely
have a
to see
sip.
you.
You've got lots to talk about.
No, well, you know me, John. I'm not shy of talking.
I don't know what you mean.
I know.
So what the whole podcast that I'm doing is about is the people that I quilt with and the people that I sew with. They are the ones that inspire me to keep going. And I think the energy that you have shown in the short time you've been doing, I'm hoping we can share with our viewers, because you've got quite an incredible story to tell. So first of all, let's start off. Who are you?
So I'm Jeanette. I am 54 and I'm a mum of 2 grown boys now, hence the new hobby. I do work full time and I just live on the outskirts of Liverpool, a little town called Kirby. And I'm married and I've got a very supportive husband who has very kindly supported me through this journey over the last 18 months financially. Not that I had much choice, but there you go.
Well, I believe forgiveness is a lot easier than permission in my marriage. I don't know if the same's for you.
He's been forgiven for a very, very long time now.
Brilliant. So how long have you been quilting for?
So I got my first sewing machine August 2019. It was a Janome 725S Sewist because I just thought I need to sew. Didn't know what I was going to sew, what I was going to do. I just thought, let's sew. And so I actually probably started a quilting journey September 19. And the very first project I started with was a memory quilt because my son was working away on cruise ships at the time. And I wanted him to have a little bit of home to take with him when he went. And I'd seen a YouTube video about a memory quilt. So that's really what prompted me to get a sewing machine and think, oh, I want to do this for my son. I couldn't sew. The last time I'd used a sewing machine was a hand cranked one in school when I was 14 and I made a rag doll. I'd done no sewing other than a bit of cross stitch over the years. I'm 54 now, so that's a long time ago. So that's when my journey started really. And I didn't know what I want to do. I didn't know what type of sewist I want to be. I just saw this machine. Someone said, yeah, that's a great all-rounder machine. Go for it. And that's where it started, basically.
So how long into the sewing did you, it wasn't until you came to quilting?
Now, I'm not going to like massage your ego here, John, but this is genuine. I call her Chanda. I think it might have been one of your last shows on her Chanda, and you were demonstrating a Bargello quilt with, I think it was batiks at the time. And I was just like, oh my God, this man is like, it's, I don't know, something just seemed to click inside. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Now, bear in mind, I couldn't patchwork, never made a quilt at all. Didn't understand fabrics, the type of fabrics, anything like that at all. And I just thought, that's what I want to do. So basically, I sort of stalked you after that, was trying to find you wherever I could. And then that sort of got me into, I was like, well, what is this patchwork? What is this quilting? Don't really know what it is. I had quilts on my bed, but never thought about the process at all. So then I started to do a lot of research on YouTube. And that's when I thought, I'm not a dressmaker. I tried to make a pair of pajamas for my husband last year. He's a large. These ended up an XXXL size.
Right.
So yeah, so they were very, like 2 of us got in one leg. So I realized very quickly I wasn't a dressmaker at all. So that's where it all came from, really. It was just like that, something just went pling, and I suddenly realized after searching for a hobby for 40 years that's where I wanted to go. So I started to research it, and what I watched YouTube avidly, tried to find you as much as I can, and then basically it just went from there. And I just sort of thought I just need to find out more.
Now, I love the way that you say that, and you were so kind, and I know it was really genuine. It's a little creepy, but it's a little bit like.
Well, I'd seen like Jane Alcock on Sewing Street. I'd seen Sarah Payne. I'd seen a couple of other quilters as well, and I loved what they were doing. Don't get me wrong, and I'm so enamored of the skill set and that, but I don't know, there was just something about the way you do your quilting and your designing that is, dare I say, quirky. I think very modern, and that's what really appealed to me. I do like traditional fabrics, don't get me wrong, and I do like modern fabrics. What I like to do is I like to take the modern fabrics and put them into your designs, and you get this sort of blend of styles. and that's the way I like to go. So I think the inspiration really for the patchwork came from you, because I didn't know what patchwork was, and then obviously then that led me on to finding out as much as I could about it, finding out who was doing it, learning all these new names of all these people in this sewing world. It was just it was an absolute pleasure and a journey. I think my husband actually bought me headphones because I watched YouTube so much day and night. He got sick of it, so he bought me headphones. And I'd be watching YouTube till 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd be snoring his head off. And I'd be like, oh, what's this? What's this? And
Oh,
Jenny
that's
Doan,
hysterical.
yeah, found Jenny Doan. I know you love her.
Oh,
Love,
she's
love the
amazing.
woman. Oh my God. She inspired me. I actually made a Bargello bag because of her last December. Bear in mind, I'd hardly done anything at all. And I watched her and I thought, I can do that. And she made me do it. Yeah, so Jenny
I
Doan.
love the way you say she made me do it, as if she's sitting there through the screen screaming at you, Netty, you will do it.
It's like she's got like the Jenny, Donna Jordan. I mean, these women take these complex, what I think are complex patterns, and then just break it all down. And in my mind, that clicks. I understand that. I understand the symmetry and also like the repetitiveness of it as well. I get all that. It's just I know some people struggle with the patchwork side of things. But it just sinks in with me. And once I get it, that's it. I can't stop, as you know.
Brilliant. Now, how long have you been doing it? Because it's not, as far as I left Hochanda in November 2019.
Yeah, well, basically, I made my very first quilt, which was just a basic, very small jelly roll strip. I didn't even know it was called a jelly roll strip quilt at the time. I just had 10-inch squares. I cut them into 2.5 inches in rectangles and sewed them together. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to copy what I'd seen on the internet, and I made that. And well, I'm not even going to bring it on screen because the sewing is, oh my
No,
God.
you will.
No,
You must.
no, it's there. It's there as a memory to show me where I started from. And when I look at that and I think, my God, have I only really been doing this? I would say for just over a year. I made that in December 19. My friend saw it. She saw a picture, so she didn't see it close up. I made her a blue one, and she puts that over her legs when she travels in her van. So I would say December 19, I made my very first quilt. So
Wow.
just over a year. But I nearly gave up in January 20, John, because doing that quilt, I realised I didn't have the skills to be able to do what I wanted to do. So I was trying to get ahead of myself, really.
But I think you've actually answered onto something that a lot of people do. It doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. If you don't get it right the first time, you're like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Like crochet for me, you must see my crochet. It's appalling. I can literally do squares and rectangles at a great push, and they're not normally squares or rectangles. But it's so important to keep going and starting with something small so it doesn't discourage you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's what it was. And like January 19, I genuinely thought I can't do this, and I felt really guilty because my husband would be so supported. He like helped me to buy all this, like the top, everything. I had everything. I took a study, the smallest room in my house, and I turned it into a mini sewing studio. I had all the bells and whistles. My husband was really encouraging, and I felt really guilty because I thought it's another hobby that's gone down the pan again, because I want to give up because I'm not doing what I wanted to do in my head. And then I think at the time, I think you were on your travels around America and you were doing your lives every day and you were showing the fabrics. And I was like, and then seeing all of that as well. And I was watching that while you were away. And I was
You
having a
know,
bit
that
of
was a year ago today.
oh, that's it. Yeah, well, that's when I was having my little bit of a crisis of confidence. And then I think it was when you started on Sewing Street in February. Is it Valentine's Day,
Yep.
February? Yeah. And I watched that, and then I was just glued. And I watched that for about, I think I watched you for about a week, and I was just so inspired. And I thought, don't give up, carry on, carry on. And then I think you introduced the welcome quilt,
Yes.
and I thought, right, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And because it was so simple to do and it was an easy project to do, I didn't feel overwhelmed. And that's basically what got me back into, because so I mean, without you there on Sewing Street, I mean, it was just so fortunate because I literally was about to walk away. My husband's seen me do this before. I've splashed out. I was going to be an artist about 3 years ago. Suddenly decided after watching an art challenge program on the television I was going to be an artist. because I did used to draw. Got
Well, you
all
kind of have been now, because it's just now your palette and your template has changed to fabric. Because I'm just looking behind you now, a lot of those I recognize.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that one, the English paper piecing one next to you. What's that?
This one. Well,
No,
this
the
is
other side.
this one.
No,
Which
the
one?
passion one. English paper piecing.
Oh gosh, yes. Now this is, oh my gosh. Now bear in mind, this is this is going to be like it is La Passion is the quilt it's called.
Can I
And
just give a bit of background to people who don't know? So a lady called Grit in the Netherlands designed this English paper piecing hexagon quilt, and it is spectacular. It's 17,280 half-inch hexagons. Now, Netty started this in September, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 17th of September 2020.
And on the 17th of December, Netty posted, literally 3 months, she posted this picture on the La Passion website page that they've got on Facebook. But all the ladies were like, oh my gosh, it's taken me 2 years to get to this point. So the fact that you've done so much in such a short space of time is so inspiring. But tell me about that now.
Well, this is made up of, I'm an absolutely massive fan of Liberty fabric, and
we've not seen it yet. Sorry, because the problem with Zoom is that only when you talk does it come up. So sorry, I interrupted you there. So there you go.
So this Liberty bought out the Winterbourne House collection of fabric towards the end of 2020, and I just absolutely adored it. And I've got a massive stash of Liberty anyway. But as soon as I saw Grit's pattern, I thought, I'm going to use that because I just think it would be so nice to do. But also, I'm quite enamoured of the cream in this, which is Osnaburg. It's a beautiful, beautiful cotton fabric. And I wanted it to be a sort of like a bit of a vintage look. And loads of people have done this quilt in bright colours. But I really wanted to go for like this vintage look. So we've got the Winterbourne House, we've got some plain peach Liberty cotton, and then the Osnaburg. So this is the centre bit. There's 2,200 hexes in the centre bit. And the quilt pattern is made up of about 13 different sections. So the next section, the outer section, is going to be diamonds, and also the inner part of this, it's made up of 6 of those. So 6 of those, 6 diamonds. And then the last part of the quilt is filling it all in and putting the border on. So it's absolutely, it's just a pleasure to work on. Working with half-inch hexes. This is my first English paper piecing project, by the way. I've never done it before. So this was the very first one that I started. And it's just such a pleasure to do. And you can actually, because they're only half-inch, they come together really, really quickly. So you can see your progress really, really fast. And when I did the first few bits, and I was like, ooh, this is nice, because my fingers suffered. They're hardened now. I've got loads of calluses on them, and I've gone from not wearing a thimble and not understanding why you needed the thimble to now I've got like building up a nice collection of thimbles, because believe me, when you do something like this, you need thimbles. So that's going to be for me, that's a very special project, and that's really, really got me. It's not perfect by any means, but I actually quite like that, because I want it to be like a family heirloom. I want to be able to pass this down to my children, you know, like in the like the Amish do and things like that. I want it to be a family heirloom, pass it down. No idea how it's going to be quilted. I think it might have to come to you, John, if it'll go on your
Oh, thanks for that. That's really inspiring, that.
you know, like the family heirloom, you know, just saying. But it's because the hexagons are so small, it actually feels quilted and wadded already, because you've got the extra fabric on the back, because the hexagons are so small. It's just, I can't stop stroking it. It's just stunning.
Oh.
Everybody who sees it adores it. And I mean, you know, there are some amazing examples out there, but I would highly recommend this pattern to anyone new. I know it's daunting. I know there's a lot of hexagons. You can stop at any time and finish it the size you want. Even if I just wanted to stop now and do this would make an amazing like floor rug if you bound it properly.
A floor rug? No, no one's going to walk on that. Are you mad? Well, no, there'll be that section in the middle of your house where everybody hops over. Can't do that. Well, now talk to me about that stack and whack over your shoulder there.
So this is Anna Marie Horner, and it was a sale fabric I got. And when I got it home, I thought, I don't like it. I don't know, it was just something about the pattern, and I had the fabric, and then I'd done a stack and whack virtual retreat with you, and you inspired me. I've got my red one over here. That was the first one I did, and I just looked at the fabric and I thought, that's a really ugly fabric. I don't like that. I'm going to try a stack and whack in it. And I had enough of the 8 repeats, just enough. So if I made a mistake, I'd have been done for. I'd have wasted the fabric. Put it together and just absolutely adore it. I just think it's so stunningly fresh. And I just love it. I think the fabric's called feather dance. But I absolutely love it. It's not quilted yet, it's just the top is done. But stack and whack is one of my favorite. If I want to relax, I'll do a stack and whack.
Oh, that's stunning. But now
Yeah.
I'm also, unfortunately, I feel like this has become a little bit of a promote John thing, but it's really not. I didn't expect you to have every quilt I've ever done or taught on the wall behind you, because I'm literally looking and seeing more and more and more of my designs. You've got that Bargello on the side there. So when we were talking about when you met me the first time on her channel, I was doing a Bargello. Obviously, I did the Channel 5 show with the Wonderful World of Crafting, and this is the design that I made after meeting with Kate on how to do it. But I did this with the Alison Glass fabric, so you bought the kit on this. And looking at it in such a small section, it's looking stunning.
It's difficult to display because it's so big. But this is my favourite part of the quilt. This is the colour range that I really absolutely adore. It's my favourite bit. I mean, there is that on the back as well, but that, I don't know what it is. You know, I like oranges and this sort of greeny colour, but to go with the black and the white is just inspired. I would never ever in a million years have done that with the fabric, and you've done that. And the greys, it's just absolutely stunning. Everybody sees it's just blown away. Even my husband, and he takes a lot of impressing. And this is only, I think it's about a quarter. I'm about a quarter of the way through, aren't I, John?
How many rows are you in? Well, there's 69 rows, 44 rows and 69 columns.
Right, well, there's 22 columns have been done there.
You're almost a third.
Yeah, I'm about a third. I've got a few bits to do. But this has been an absolute pleasure to make. I was overwhelmed, don't get me wrong, when I bought the kit. I was like, oh, and I probably sat on it for about 3 months before I even looked at the pattern.
Oh, come on. Now you're just exaggerating, because you sat on it for 3 months just so that you could stroke it.
I did do that. I did do that, I've got to say. But what I didn't want to do, because it was such a nice kit and the fabric, it's all Alison Glass, isn't it? So, I mean, you know, I absolutely adore Alison Glass. But what I didn't want to do was start cutting it and make a mess of it. So I wanted to be 100% certain that I understood the pattern and I felt confident enough to do it. So I was dead pleased. I bought it, don't get me wrong. But I wanted to do it justice. And I just knew at the time when I bought it that I wasn't quite there. But now I feel I am. So this is the start of it. And yeah, this is like my little relaxation. I sew this when I just need to just do a bit of straight stitching, and I love matching the little points up and things like that, you know, and if they don't quite meet and it's not too bad, I don't worry about it. It's not perfect, but you know,
well, it's pretty close in my opinion. Now, talk to me about those little ones, because I recognize those as well, because you've actually got quite a little penchant now for these wonderful mini quilts.
Absolutely addicted to mini quilts. So I've got this, I don't know whether you can see that one at the top?
We can just see the corner of it, yeah.
But yeah, well, that was done on a retreat, wasn't it? So there was that one there, which is actually it's an 18 inch by 18 inch foundation paper piece, and I think it's log cabin and courthouse steps, the pattern. And then I've made 2 smaller ones with 2 blocks that I didn't quite like, but that's going to be displayed in a box frame on point, and that's going on the wall when I get the box frame. Just love this one. This is absolutely stunning. This is the bejeweled pattern. This is 20 by 20 because I added the extra border on. And these, I think this was the first time I'd ever done such a complex miniature FPP block. So and these as well. These, all the points meet. I'm just so impressed with myself.
Brilliant. But what's so extraordinary with that pattern, as I showed you when we did the class, is that yes, it looks incredibly daunting, but when you break those down into the 5 different pieces of each block, they're not that hard.
That's it. And so when you look at the pattern, you think, oh God, there's like 30 odd pieces in it. I can't do that. But it's just try. It's so on the line. To me, it's just like colouring in with fabric, really. That's all it is. And that's the that project, that retreat that we did, because you very kindly gave us a pattern for both for the retreat. That's what inspired me to get into FPP. I've done a tiny little bit on a bookcase quilt, which frightened the life out of me. And I thought I'm never going to do that again because I'd had no instruction. I hadn't really watched it. But after the instruction, I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to FPP everything. And basically I am. I've downloaded the Dear Jane quilt from Susan Greenwood's FPP site. I've got the whole pattern for that. So that's all FPP. That's in a massive binder up there. I even, at one of the retreat that we went to in September, you taught us how to do sew circles and arcs. So that inspired me to
just to clarify, those circles and arcs are with FPP, and Netty has just put a book up as I was talking, so it wasn't on screen. So
just
she's now gotten boom, boom, boom.
Yes, New York Beauties. I've been inspired to buy that now because of what we did in that retreat. And
I've seen what I love is that Carl Hesh.
Yeah, Carl Hesh, and it's got a foreword by Tula Pink. Have you got it?
Of course I've got it. Like, hello. So what I love is that's my book, pristine, clean, ready to go. Now go and show yours with all your notes.
This is mine with all my notes, and I've even gone as far as to print out the initial FPP blocks that I need. Ready to
showing off now. I love it.
So, but this is a quilt, you know, like my sister. I've actually dragged my sister into this hobby, as you know, and she's now got 2 sewing machines, and she's come on a retreat with us. But she's really enjoying doing FPP as well. And this we've picked out a pattern out of this book called the Rust. It's called Rust, the pattern. But we're actually going to do it as like a little sister project this year. And we're going to try and
amazing.
I know, and we're not going to use the bright colours. We're actually going to use traditional fabrics. I think she's using William Morris. I'm probably going to try a bit of Adidas Sitar because I do adore her fabrics as well. So we were chatting just after Christmas, and we thought, let's just do that, just to try and keep us, you know, motivated and do something together, because she's not into the journey as far as I am. And I just love being able to support her, and I love the joy on her face when something comes together. It makes me so proud. I'm so proud as her elder sister that she's actually done a little bit, you know. So. Oh,
I'm so pleased. Now, when we did this, before we go any further, I don't want this all to be about my designs. You've got a CAFE one there as well. Tell me about that.
Oh my God! Now this was the design is from his Quilts and Burano book, which if anyone hasn't seen it, you need to see it, because it's just a feast for the eyes. The book. He's got so many brilliant designs. I'm an absolute CAFE nut. In fact, I'm so nutty about it. I just don't like using the fabrics. I just want to keep them there all of the time. So this is one of the fabrics that patterns that he did, and it's just basically squares, just sewn together. It's so simple to do. But I didn't have all of the fabrics that he recommended you use, so I had some of his black spotty fabric. So I just replaced that, and I just absolutely love it. And a lot of people have said, you know, that's a really, really good choice to have put that in. So that's ready to go. That's not finished yet. That needs some bigger borders around it. That's just the inner part of it. But this was the very first quilt that I actually cut up. And Natasha McCarty, who I really enjoy following her, she did the most amazing interview with CAFE in August, and he was just surrounded by his fabrics, by his quilts, which is what inspired me to get all of my bits and bobs out today. And after watching that interview, I thought, Jeanette, come on, cut your CAFE up. There's no point sitting on the shelf. Cut it up. This is the first time I've ever cut CAFE.
Well, I'm pleased that you said that, because part of what I did this year was I set up a charity. Last year was called the Quilters Legacy Foundation. Unfortunately, we all know people who passed away and their stashes end up being sold off. And it's horrible, because you look at this incredible fabric that people have never cut up, they've never used, they've never actually created something that they could really enjoy and love. And part of the series is for me to actually say to you, right, what's your favorite fabric? Pull it out, what you're going to make with it. So you've actually done it now, so I don't have to do that with you. You've ruined my bit.
Well, I mean, that was the first time I did that. This quilt here, you probably might sort of recognize the pattern. This, I think, was the very first virtual retreat that you'd run in April, which was also my very first retreat. This is the first time I ever met the girls who go on the retreats and some of the members of your beginners Quilt Emporium support group on Facebook. And so this is a very special quilt to me for two reasons. First of all, it's the first time I ever used any of the Liberty that I bought in January 2020. I was very lucky to be gifted some gift cards to Liberty of London, and I bought nearly 33 meters of their fabric in January. No idea what I was going to do with it. So it was the first time I was able to use the Liberty. And again, I've gone a bit mental on this. I've got a bit of Osnaburg in there, which I absolutely adore. But this was the first pattern of yours that I actually followed and completed. And it was also my first virtual retreat as well. And I remember that retreat, I was so nervous, my hands were shaking. You know, just meeting everybody and the whole experience. But when I'd finished it, I was just so inspired. I mean, I really didn't think I could ever do anything like this. And I haven't quilted it yet because I don't know, it's like, it's really special, that quilt. And I just want it to be, I want it to be perfect when it's done. So I haven't quite decided on the quilting yet or what to do, or even the backing.
Well, you see, you know what I'm like. I would say do a double-sided quilt and do something equally as special on the back with a giant border on it. But it'll come. There's no rush on it. You do it when you're ready.
Isn't now. And then after that one, very quickly, this again is another retreat pattern. I think it was the squares quilt. And so I cut more Liberty up. This is the feathers pattern in orange. And I matched it with some moder and just put some plains. And again, that's an unusual pattern quilt because I would never have mixed the size of squares that you did in that pattern the way you did. I wouldn't have done that. And when you actually put it together and when you hold it up, it's, oh my God, it's just amazing. But again, that needs, I was actually going to do a flange border on that, John.
I will never get away with this, will I? So some people may not have watched this. On Sewing Street, I went on air with Wendy Orlando, and I'd never heard what a flange was, because a flange to me is a folded piece of fabric in a border of a quilt. Don't Google it. I'm warning you, do not Google it, because it means something very different in the UK, which I didn't know. And I was referring, got my designer in today giggling over here quietly on it. So yes, so there's a standard joke with me that everybody's going to always bring me a quilt with a flange in it. So I just chuckle every time I hear that. And I mean the quilted flange, the quilting fabric flange, before anyone gets rude.
Yeah, so I think I might just be putting an orange flange on that and sending it to you to long arm.
Oh, God.
It'll bring back a memory.
Right, so now I cannot thank you enough for joining me today for this. I'm not going to let you go now because I'm now going to do what I wanted to do is to get everybody's stories, get them to talk about whether they're going to use their fabric. But you've already taken your gorgeous fabric, your Liberty, and got that ready and cutting up. So very proud of you. Well done. But I'm going to fire you some quick fire questions that you can answer, and you have to be able to answer immediately. Okay. 1 or 2 words. Right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite fabric designer? TikTok. Go again.
Kay Fassett.
Why?
Colour, design. He's just crazy. Love him.
Do you belong to any quilting groups?
No, only I'm just a member of your Beginners Quilt Emporium support group. I've got non-local to me, so no.
Are you a member of the Quilters Guild?
No.
Do you recommend any of your groups to your friends? I did not actually. That's awkward because obviously it's my group, so that feels like a promotional question. But unfortunately, I didn't realise you didn't belong to it.
No, I have. No, I have recommended your quilt group to. I am in other sewing groups, not related to quilting, and when people have put on questions, I have recommended our group, our support group.
Who is your sewing inspiration?
My sewing inspiration is, oh God, you know, hang on, Martha, can I just bear with me one second because I wrote this down and I just can't remember off the top of my head.
I know what it's like. It's the problem when you get asked 60 million questions.
Oh, so there's well, I suppose the very first sewing inspiration, just because it was one of the first ladies I watched, outside of you, was Sarah Payne. Because she just seems so down to earth, and I bought her book. It was the very first quilting book I bought, and then I have to say, only because of the last year, Natasha McCarthy, because she's gone from being a presenter to this most amazing sewist who can do anything.
She's one to watch. She's one to watch, in my opinion.
I find her quite inspiring, because to me, she's like, her journey over this last year is exactly how I felt I was feeling last year as well. So I'm quite inspired by her as well.
Wonderful. How many UFOs do you have?
25 plus.
Plus, I like it. What, how big would you say your stash was? How many meters?
I would say genuinely over 500 meters, over 500. Well, actually, no, it's more than that, because I've got 90 in bolts. So I'd say 750 plus.
How many projects do you think you're going to do this year?
I am going to try and do a project a month. Now, I've got some long-term projects, but I'm going to try and aim to do 12 big projects. That's what my aim is, because I want to time. I've got more time this year.
Netty, I've known you for almost a year. I'm going to say I'm going to go with 20, because I know you're going to have 3 or 4 in one go.
Yeah, well, I have actually cut out a stack and whack. That's ready to go, and that's probably took me 4 hours. So that's ready to go. So that's a project already for this month. So
love it. What is your top tip for any new quilter?
Top tip is don't give up. Do not give up and try anything. And if you look at something and you think, I can never do that, just YouTube it, watch as much as you can and try. Just try everything. I did not know I could do what I did without trying it. And yet I've made loads of mistakes, don't get me wrong. But if I make a mistake and someone can't tell me what I've done, I go into YouTube and find out. There's so much out there. So many people, Jenny Doan, Donna Jordan, yourself. There's loads of people out there who can tell you how to fix these things. Just don't give up and just do it. Just do it. And you don't need massive amounts of fabric. You don't need massive amounts of equipment to do it. Even EPP, if you just start on the EPP project, you need thread, paper and material, and you can use scraps. So
well, you know what I did with my husband's shirts, don't you? So my husband's shirts, he had collars and cuffs had gone. So I then took them, and I had 50 of his shirts over many years that he'd got rid of, and all of them got cut up, and they're all hexagons and squares in a box waiting to be made.
There you go. And then you've got the memory then, what it, I mean, I'm a big fan of doing that. I do that, like my children, when they outgrow the jeans, I get in there, I get the buttons, I get the zips, and I've got like loads of scraps of denim. I've got so much, my scrap stash is huge. But I'm using me Dear Jane. I'm making the Dear Jane quilt from all my scraps, from all the projects that I've done so far in my sewing journey. So the Dear Jane quilt will just purely be made up of those scraps. So to me,
but that's what it started with. That was what quilting started with, that whole scrap thing. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
What would be your message for new quilters? Not a top tip, just a message for them.
Basically, just don't worry if things aren't perfect, because what I've found, and I think this is why I struggled with joining the local quilt group as well, is there's a lot of people who get really hung up over points matching and things being perfect and doing things a certain way. And you don't do it this way, you don't sew your seam, you don't iron your seams flat, and things like this. And I did find that a lot. But what I would say is just do it the way you think you're happy with it, and don't stress over it if points don't match and things like that. It's handmade, it should look handmade. And if you're making something, if you're making it for somebody in mind and you give it to them, it's handmade with love and care, and you've thought about them. So for me, if it's not perfect, it's a one-off, it's an individual item as far as I'm concerned. So don't get hung up on the perfection of quilting and patchwork. And I think that way then you'll finish more projects and you'll see your skills progress.
But you're quite right. There definitely has been a shift in, or maybe it's just the people that we quilt with or do our journey with. Because when I started as well, there was very much this this notion that if your point didn't meet, it was rubbish. If this wasn't perfect, it's rubbish. And I think there's definitely I'm trying to tread very carefully here. There's definitely a mentality that if it's not perfect, it's rubbish. And I think nowadays people are moving away from that. And I think that certainly the quilting journey I'm on, it doesn't have perfection in it. And yes, we all want it to be perfect, but if it's not, it doesn't diminish what you've done. It just enhances it and makes it more unique.
I mean, if you're really worried and anxious about it, just find Nicholas Ball and look at what he does. I
Oh
think
my
he's got
God,
all
he's
sorts of
amazing.
inspiring improv. Yeah.
He is
Um,
so amazing. I love his work.
and he just throws everything out the window, and you watch him, you go, oh my God. And anybody who watches him and what he does, and then the end product, and you're thinking, that can't be made from what you've just done, but it is. So to go and find him, that will really get you out of that everything's got to match, everything's got to be perfect. And I think that's why I quite enjoy the group that we're in, because I know I don't go off piece as much as some people in our group. The people who join some of the retreats, I know that, but I do go off piece a lot, maybe with colours and patterns and layouts. But I think that's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be saying, you shouldn't get a pattern and think, I've got to do the pattern exactly the same. Do the pattern to the way you want to do it. If you don't like things, just change it. It's your pattern at the end of the day. Don't think you've got to follow it. And I think that's where to me, that's what's unlocked my inspiration. And also it's made me start to think about designing quilts myself, the layouts, and taking this block and tweaking it a little bit. I'll watch like Donna Jordan or Jenny, and then I'll go, oh, I like that, but I'm going to do it this way instead, or that way instead. And that's really what I found really, really refreshing and inspiration. And it's what keeps me in this hobby, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. And I love the fact that obviously with meeting you, I think we're very like-minded in our approach with how we look at quilts and fabrics. And some of the fabrics that we've had chats about, I would never have, I'd walked past in a million years, I would never have bought. And then I've actually got them home and I've gone, oh my God, that's so brilliant. And then that's led me on to like curating my own stash, which I never thought in a million years I'd have. And I can see the development, because when I first started, I was actually quite a boring person. With me, I thought I was quite boring with my fabric choices. Now I've got all this fabric and it's so exciting to see the colours and the designs and think, right, I'm going to see something, I'll go, right, I'm doing that with that, or that with that. I couldn't do that 12 months ago. No way. So I just feel like I've learned so much with this. And one thing that has been very, very good is my maths has improved since I've become a quilter. Knew what an eighth of an inch was, or how to add up an eighth of an inches or quarter of an inches. I just never did that. But yeah, like I was squaring up some blocks last night. It was like 9 3/4, like, oh, and I did it without even thinking. I was cutting them. I was thinking, couldn't have done this a year ago, could I? Because I just didn't have the wherewithal to do it. So yeah.
Well, you certainly inspired me this morning. I hate ending this off on a bad note, but what's your biggest regret in your quilting journey?
That I didn't start this years and years ago. I get a little bit scared and anxious thinking, if it had been like this 20, 30 years ago, where would it be now? God, my house would be bulging. But that is my biggest regret, because I just feel like I'm catching up on time now. So I would say don't, I'm trying to inspire younger people as well. Like, I've got my sister involved. My children see me doing this and they're absolutely blown away. And some of them, I've got 2 boys, and even they're like, it's changing their perception of this skill. And that, like, they used to think old women sewed, but they don't think of me as old, even though I'm their mum. And they see what I do and they think it's really modern, refreshing. And they're friends in the early 20s. They're like, will you make me a quilt like that? That's amazing. Whereas they would never have thought of having a quilt before. So I'm hoping that I'm sort of inspiring a younger generation, and maybe that will inspire them to take up sewing earlier on, rather than wait till my age and then try.
Well, I heard a brilliant line once saying that if we teach our young people how to quilt, they won't have money for drugs because it'll all be on fabric. And looking at the way you do it, that's quite true.
Yeah, there's well, it's really quite ironic, because since I started quilting, I have cut down on the gin. Because you can't sew while you've had a couple of gins,
I beg to differ, my dear. I beg to differ.
Definitely. And when your fingers are busy, you're not going near the chocolate or the biscuit tin, are you? Let's be honest.
I beg to differ, my dear. I beg to differ.
That's that's my journey anyway. But yeah.
Oh, Netty, it's been an absolute joy. I cannot thank you enough today for your time and sharing your journey with us. It is so, so special. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today and to look at all your books.